So this Lego tutorial is on how to draw the 3x2 inverted slope block that you see on some of the various Lego assemblies. We can see that it's 2 blocks wide by 3 blocks long and 1 brick length on the bottom and a peg height on the side. So I'm going to go to my Onshape Lego Part Studio. And so that I don't mess with these other Legos I've already created, I'm going to hide them by unchecking the eyeball or saying hide over on the side menu. Now I'm going to create a sketch on the top plane. And I can view it straight on. And I'll start with the base rectangle like always. I'm going to dimension that base rectangle. And it is 2 brick units wide. And 3 brick units long. Now I can extrude it as always. Then you're going to do a 1 brick height extrusion. All right. So we say OK to that. Now I'm going to go ahead and create the angled surface on the side by right-clicking and putting a sketch on the side of my block. And I'm going to use project to grab the edges. So I just click the side of the block, make some nice dark lines, easy to see. And now I'm going to use the line tool and just create a triangle on the bottom corner to the right. I'm not dimensioning where it goes, I'm just making sure I don't snap it to the midpoint. Now I'll dimension it. And I know that from the left side of my block to where the angle starts is going to be 1 brick unit. And the distance from the top of my block to where the angle ends is going to be 1 peg height. Now that I've got my triangle, I can say extrude. Turn the view slightly sideways so you can see what's going on. And I'm going to uncheck the part I don't want to extrude, and then I'm going to say remove under the extrusion, and you can see it's going to cut that bottom part of my triangle away. And as long as the depth is beyond the size of my object, it doesn't matter what my depth is. And so I can say OK. And now I'm going to right-click on the top to create my sketch to make my pegs. So circle. Create my bottom left peg as usual. Dimension that peg as peg diameter. And dimension it from the edge of the block to the edge of the circle as peg height. Or you could dimension from the edge of the block to the center of the circle as half a brick unit. Now I will go ahead and extrude this. A peg height. and confirm it with the green check. So this block is a little bit different if we go back and look at the tutorial for it. So we see it actually has 2 full pegs on the top and 4 pegs with holes, and it's shelled. So that means we need to do the 2 pegs on the top first, and then the hole in the bottom, and then we'll shell out the top. So I'll create both pegs on top. So I created one. Now I'm just going to linear pattern the next one. So linear pattern, select feature, choose the extrusion of the peg in my menu, click the direction box, click the direction I want my peg to go parallel to, and my distance will be a brick unit. And my instance count is going to remain 2 because I only need 2 of them. Tab to see it, and then OK to confirm. Now that I have 2 pegs, I could create the other 4 in the same process if you didn't want to make the Lego look more accurate. I'll do the bottom, so I'll turn it over, right click on it and put a sketch. Then I'll use the Use Project button to project the peg circles to the bottom. And I can turn it back over. Zoom in here a little bit. And so the bottom of this one just has a little circle peg in the middle. So it's the same process as creating a single long brick. So to do that, we're going to create a circle in the center of these 2. We're going to make it tangent to both these circles. Circle tangent to peg edge. And then I need to tie the center of this circle vertical to one of the other circles. All right, and that confirms that it's good because it changed color. So instead of doing a shell on this here like we did before, because it would actually shell out the inside of this, and we don't want to do that where the ramp section is, we're going to go back into that sketch we just created and create a rectangle that is tangent to the edges of these circles. I'm going to draw it too big, and then use my tangent option to attach the top of the rectangle so that it's tangent to the top of the circle, tangent the bottom of the rectangle to the bottom circle, and then do the side of the rectangle to the side of the pegs. There we go. And now what that allows me to do is extrude cut that portion there. And so we're going to say extrude. And it actually clicked right what I wanted to extrude. I want to make sure I extrude all this region except for that one peg in the center. If you needed to, you could go and select or unselect parts to make sure you're getting the parts you want. We're going to remove, so I click remove. I'm going to turn it slightly angled so I can see what's going on. I obviously don't want to go that far. My depth is going to be 1 brick unit. And if you want to see how far the brick unit goes, you can say tab. And let me turn it sideways. We don't want to go brick unit. We want to change that depth a little bit. Oh, no, not brick unit. I'm sorry. Brick height. brick unit is actually at the right distance, but I wanted to show you the math behind it. So we set a brick height minus a peg depth to leave that portion of plastic up here. So brick height minus the variable peg height, which does end up being 8 millimeters, which is that brick unit. But I want to make sure you understand the formula. So I say OK and confirm. Now the underside of my Lego is correct. Now I turn it back over. And so I need to shell the top, just so I remove this first part of the top rectangle down to the slanted surface underneath. So shell, click top surface, type in my thickness, which is a peg height. Tab to confirm. And because we did a distance of 1.6, the shell stops 1.6 away from the edges of these pegs, and it doesn't shell out underneath the peg. So we're going to say OK to that. That looks about right. Now, if we want to put the pegs back in this region here, we can actually create a sketch on top of this surface. Actually, let me check. Now we're creating our sketch on the top surface. And we can't do what we normally do, where we're able to linear pattern these pegs, because they'd be linear patterning over something that has nothing underneath, and that doesn't work. So by creating a sketch on top of the peg, we can use the other linear pattern option to work inside a sketch after we use project one of the circles. If you want to use project both pegs, you can do that, and then your linear pattern is a little bit simpler. So linear pattern inside your sketch, choose your two circles that make the pegs. Our depth or distance of the linear pattern, you can double click it and change that to your brick unit. Tab to confirm. Then we may need to zoom in or out to get to the number of instances we need. In this case, we actually do need 3. Click OK. And I should be able to say extrude. Click my circles. Turn my view up a little bit. And instead of blind, I want to do up to face. And so I will select this slanted face. And so here's where it gets a little bit tricky. It will not allow us to do this extrusion because when the circle touches the edge wall, it is exactly 1.6 and therefore makes the circle's tangent to the wall. And in Onshape, you can't actually have 2 tangent surfaces because tangent surfaces can't exist in real life on a part. So because of that, we have to make one small modification to our shell that we did earlier. And so we'll just close out this extrusion and go back into the shell. And instead of 1.6, which is a peg height, we want to do it a peg height minus 0.01. Or I'm sorry, plus 0.01. And it may not let you retype it in because it doesn't like using a plus or minus symbol, but all you really need to do is go a slightly greater distance than the 1.6 wall thickness. So if you want, you can say peg height times 0.01. See what that gives us. Oh, all right, it doesn't like it that way. 1.01, I'm sorry. There we go. So we went just slightly greater than 1.6 by doing peg height times 1.01. And it ends up being 1.61, which is fine. Now I say okay. And now I can go back to my original sketch that I had drawn the other pegs in and extrude. Click my 4 pegs again. Up to face. And if I click the slanted face this time, they actually work. Because on a microscopic level, if I zoom in here, these spots aren't tangent. And I can say okay. Now if you wanted to, you could go back and make it look a little bit more accurate. You could add in little rectangular supports holding the pegs together, and putting circles inside the pegs. That's not necessary though for our purpose. One thing though we do need to do is to draw little notches on the bottom of our shape where the pegs run into if we stack this on another block. So to do that, we're going to put a sketcher on the bottom, and then we're going to use project these 2 pegs on the top surface here. Use project, click them both, and now I can kind of see where they fall underneath. Now I can just do extrude, click both those circles if one shape doesn't automatically select them, and change my depth to peg height. And say remove. And so what that will do is it will remove any region inside that volume where it happens to touch my block. And okay. And there we have it. We have our inverted 3x2 block with room for the pegs to stack on top. And if you want, you can go ahead and put your sketch on top of the pegs to put your name or identify on it.